Across the Pacific lie extraordinary volcanic islands, from the famous Galapagos archipelago to obscure tiny atolls. These equatorial hotspots harbor animals that are truly unique and bizarre. Reptiles that swim, birds that can't fly, displaced penguins, dancing seabirds, and the world's largest land crustacean. The Equator. The line of latitude that crosses 11 countries and 4 oceans. Here, the Earth remains close to the sun all year round, dividing night and day into equal halves. Sitting on the equator is a group of 20 volcanic islands. These make up the famous Galapagos archipelago. 600 miles west of continental South America, these rich evolutionary melting pots are strongly influenced by 3 major ocean currents. Although the islands are dominated by cold water due to the Humboldt Ocean current from South America, it's tempered by a seasonal warmer current from the north. As a result, species often found in warm seas of the Pacific mix with cold water animals that traditionally thrive further north or south. Penguins, sea lions, and albatrosses thrive in these cold water currents. Turtles, hammerheads, and exotic fish are found on the western side. On land, there are tortoises, reptiles, and seabirds of all types, finding their own evolutionary niche in this equatorial paradise. Galapagos animals are often not what they seem. Cormorants are highly adaptable hunters seen in many parts of the world. But here they are found on just 2 islands in the Western Reaches. And the Galapagos species is uniquely different. It can't fly. The lack of predators on these volcanic islands meant that the cormorants gave away the power of flight. Their wings are tiny and scruffy compared to their flying cousins. The breastbone has also lost its pronounced ridge, where well-developed wings normally attach. Flight seems essential for most birds when hunting their aquatic prey. But here on Fernandina Island, they've adapted to find everything they need in the shallow seas. Food, and on an almost treeless island, nesting materials. Fresh seaweed takes the place of twigs and leaves. The female adds the seaweed to the nest she's building. When complete, it'll cushion the eggs from the jagged, hard volcanic rocks. This rocky cove in the island's northeast is home to around 100,000 marine iguanas. They're cold-blooded, so in the morning, they spread far and wide over the rocks to soak up the hot equatorial sun before foraging. In During the breeding season, the males will also engage in territorial fights while letting the females sunbathe unmolested. The street fight consists of headbutting and posturing and raising their dorsal crest. They'll never actually bite each other. The loser carefully backs away, conceding space on the rock. Eventually, the iguana's core temperature will be high enough for a dip in the ocean. Being cold-blooded means that heat needs to come from the equatorial sun. The first big males cautiously make their way down to the water's edge. There's little vegetation, so through an extraordinary adaptation, they graze off the seabed instead. Just a few hundred feet offshore, there's an underwater algae meadow. Only the biggest males, due to their larger size, can dive down here. They are also the only iguana species that does dive. On land, the temperature varies between 69 to 84 Fahrenheit. But the ocean water is only 60 degrees, low enough to kill a cold-blooded reptile. But the male has a couple of coping strategies. It draws in its blood to the core organs, keeping them functioning. It also drastically lowers its heart rate. This way, they can survive the 20-degree plunge in their body temperature. But 2 hours in the cold water is their limit. As the morning wears on, another big iguana takes the plunge. He braces himself against the strong current with his long claws. He'll have to hang on tight. He can't afford to be washed out too far, because it's a race against time to eat before his body temperature gets too low. They are voracious. Luckily, the algae replenishes quickly in just a few days. The iguanas surface often to breathe. Around 30 minutes is their observed limit. They seem to know when it's time to return to the safety of the shore. But after a long dive, the big males are sometimes barely able to swim because of their low body temperature. If they're swept out to sea, they'll face certain death. They must fight their way back to the warmer shores. The male makes it back. But if these large males are the only ones who can feed underwater, how do the females and smaller males eat? The large marine iguanas of the Galapagos get their sustenance from the extensive underwater algae meadows. But how do smaller iguanas survive? patience is key. They wait for the tide to be low enough to expose the same algae beds. But they too have a race against time before the turning tide. In the north of Fernandina is Cape Douglas. Here, another cold-blooded reptile has adapted to the colder waters. The Galapagos green turtle. It lacks the iguana's large claws, so has to swim against the tide to graze on the algae. They're the only species to nest on the Galapagos beaches. The turtles are not the only unexpected immigrants here. On the central island of Santa Cruz, seawater mixes with fresh water to produce briny lagoons near the coast. Here, unlikely birds can be found wading. Flamingos. These striking waders feed with their heads upside down. Their beaks are designed to separate mud and silt from the food they consume. They eat mostly small crustaceans, which contain a carotene pigment, which cause their feathers to turn many hues of pink. Around 350 live here permanently, immigrants from the Caribbean islands, 1,100 miles northeast of the Galapagos. It's possible these birds arrived on the trade winds that only occur in the tropics. The Galapagos are positioned in a very unique location at the intersection of several ocean currents, combining with equatorial heat-driven surface temperatures. What's more, although there are two seasons, wet and dry, there is also a big difference in water temperature during part of the year. The islands are dominated by cold water due to the Humboldt Ocean current that is swept up from South America, bringing water full of nutrients from Antarctica. A bonanza for the Galapagos animals. During the wet season from January to April, the effect of the cold Humboldt abates, allowing warmer waters to influence the islands. The surface water can reach 77 degrees Fahrenheit. It also means the nutrient-rich cold water has yet to arrive, limiting the food supply for this period. Remarkably, Galapagos penguins have adapted to live in both the eastern and western islands. The penguins' presence on the equatorial Galapagos is due to the nutrients brought on the cold currents, which are necessary for their survival. The Galapagos is home to some bigger fish, too. The scalloped hammerhead sharks, which live here all year round. It's an ongoing mystery that in January they gather in massive schools. One theory is that it's linked to nursery sites in the island's mangroves and reefs. The presence of sharks here is a sign that there are bigger fish and squid to be had. Especially for the island's boobies, who specialize in these prey. The boobies catch their lunch by dive-bombing the water. But the water is still warm. There's little reward for all their hard work. This breeding pair has 3 eggs. But there is only enough food for a single chick at the moment. This chick's survival depends on ocean currents. The cold current that arrives in June is the result of a phenomenon called the equatorial trade winds. The rotation of the Earth creates these winds along the equator. This also induces a cold, deep undercurrent that travels eastwards towards the Galapagos west coast. They await this current, which is full of nutrients. Before that, the boobies have more immediate problems. Because they aren't the only hungry seabirds on the island. Their nemesis are the frigate birds. These feathered pirates steal the birds' food from right under them. A female booby collecting sticks to build a nest must run a gauntlet of aerial highway robbers, as intent on thieving sticks as they are of food. With a wingspan of more than 6 feet, the frigate birds are aerobatic aces. They can stay airborne for days and may even sleep while they're aloft. They're also able to steal sticks out of a booby's beak in midair. Frigates have very light skeletons and long, narrow wings, making them skilled flyers. Eventually, the booby, realizing that the game is up, drops its stick. But the agile frigate bird just swoops it up. Luckily, frigates breed at the same time as boobies, so any food destined for booby chicks can be fed to their own. The male frigate inflates a distinctive throat pouch during courtship. As females fly overhead, a group of males try to impress them with the loudness of the drumming sound emanating from their red pouch. In the end, if the boobies do well, the frigates will too. It's a tough place to breed, and frigates only rear one chick, especially since the male leaves to find another female well before it's fully fledged. The chicks are reared for 12 months, longer than any other bird on Earth. Some of the nutrients that provide for the seabirds in the waters of the Galapagos originate from a very far-off place. 5,000 miles west sits a tiny volcanic atoll, surrounded by an immensely rich reef. The nutrients that feed it come from the island's feathery residents. It's home to red-footed seabirds and the world's largest and most fearsome land crabs. The arid ecosystem of the Galapagos is very different to other equatorial islands in the Pacific Ocean. But there is one island thousands of miles west that is strangely connected thanks to the equator. Tiny Palmyra Atoll, situated between Hawaii and American Samoa, is devoid of humans and home to unusual creatures and plant life. Tall trees grow here, up to 100 feet in height. Very few volcanic islands of this size have large trees because of the poor quality soil. There is a giant creature here too, which is more the stuff of nightmares. The coconut crab. The male can lift as much as 60 pounds with legs that span over 3 feet wide. Access to fresh, juicy coconuts that fall naturally to the ground makes them not just the largest land crabs in the world, but the largest land invertebrates. With massive front claws, they can exert over 700 pounds of force, almost as much as a lion's jaw. Stripping away white flesh from an open coconut with a little help from their friends. They have even been known to climb trees and cut them down. Apart from the coconuts, there's not that much to eat here. And crabs will consume anything that comes their way. They thrive on this uninhabited island because they have no predators. It's not totally peaceful here. Fights between the crabs break out from time to time. The crabs may rule the forest floor, but the treetops are dominated by seabirds. 11 species visit here to nest. This island is one of only a few where seabirds can raise their young. They can't build a nest in coconut palms, which have no substantial branches. High in a tree, a chick waits. This is a booby chick. These Palmyra boobies are a related species and have bright red feet, which becomes more intense during courtship. They may be perched next to an ocean, but the warm Pacific here lacks the smorgasbord the Galapagos boobies have around them. Here, adults have to spend most of their time on fishing expeditions far out to sea. Their favorite food is squid and flying fish, which don't live around the reef. In fact, there's only ever enough food for a pair to raise one chick. If a chick dies, its parents won't breed again until next year. But the dead booby chicks are quickly recycled. They're an alternative diet for the coconut crabs. The presence of large seabirds also helps fertilize the Pisonia trees with their rich guano. Just add water. Almost 15 feet falls every year. But the island doesn't flood. It's made of porous coral sand, where rainwater quickly drains away. The crab breathes air through modified gills, but needs to keep them moist with its tiny leg, which catches drips. It also drinks some seawater to maintain its salt balance. Storms often batter this tiny atoll. There's no dry season here. Rain falls all year round. The natural fertilizers wash into the sea and create an underwater wonderland. Without this, the waters would be barren of fish and other life forms. A school of convict surgeonfish are able to graze rich algae fertilized by the guano. The reef's brightly colored fish makes it seem benign here. But looks can be deceptive. At night, the reef can change quickly and dramatically. Mysterious giants of the deep emerge from the darkness. "5,000 miles west of the Galapagos is the Palmyra Atoll. Here, the sun is setting. At the equator, dusk always comes quickly. Boobies are still feeding out in the open ocean. But underwater, marine animals are changing for nighttime. The bumphead parrotfish tucks itself away as it sleeps. As many fish slumber, swarms of tiny zooplankton come to the surface to feed. But not all are taking 40 winks. Giant manta rays swoop to feed on the miniature animal life. A feast for them every night. They swim in vertical loops to sweep up the microscopic prey into their filtering plates. Oddly, they do have teeth, which the males seem to use only to hold onto the female during copulation. By the next morning, the rays have gone out to the sea's main channel, and the reef comes back to life again. Palmyra's extensive coral ecosystem is thanks to a cold, deep ocean current. The Cromwell Current flows 300 feet below the ocean's surface and brings up nutrients to islands all along the equator. It biologically connects tiny atolls like Palmyra to the large archipelago of the Galapagos. Palmyra fish species also make use of the Cromwell Current to spread their spawn. On the highest tide, fish release sperm and eggs. The eggs sink and are picked up by the Cromwell Current, and some may even be swept all the way to the Galapagos. Butterfly fish spawn can be washed away on this current too. But the conditions here are different. These tropical reef-loving fish have had to adapt to living in the colder waters off the Galapagos. Coral is less abundant here, so they have changed their behavior to become parasite feeders, feeding off the crumbs of bigger fish. The seas around the Galapagos are full of food for seabirds. But oddly, not for the largest seabirds here, who choose not to feed in the local waters. The Galapagos is home to the only tropical species of albatross in the world. It's thought that these islands became attractive to the birds as they were free from predators. Under normal circumstances, they would be exposed, as albatrosses spend a lot of their time making ritual displays to each other. It's mating season, and two males fight over a female. Like frigate birds, albatrosses raise just one chick. The task will take a pair nearly 9 months. Even mated pairs will still perform in front of each other. These rituals are very elaborate. They can go on for several minutes at a time. The albatrosses have made the islands their home. But strangely, instead of fishing in local waters, they fly 800 miles to catch their lunch. The Equator's only albatross species makes immense hunting trips for their young. Each bird embarks on a journey to the coast of Peru, which is incredibly rich in fish and squid. But why fly 1,200 miles? The Galapagos albatross's fishing expedition is short compared to some albatross species who will fly nearly 10,000 miles to forage. Distance is no barrier. These great birds have evolved to fly across the oceans to find their favorite feeding grounds, wherever they are. By March, the warmth of the island waters reached their peak. But even by May, the cold water currents still haven't arrived. When it comes, it doesn't just bring nutrients to the Galapagos, but also cool air. For the animals here, the equatorial heat is a challenge for many. But for some, it's a blessing. For a big male iguana that has been feeding on the underwater algae gardens, the heat is essential. He's now so cold, he hasn't got the energy to digest the algae. So he must warm up again. It's only when his body reaches 99 degrees Fahrenheit that he can digest it. He presses himself against the hot rock to maximize the heat transference. He's ingested so much salt that he's adapted to expel it through a special gland in his nose. The birds choose this warmer season to produce their young. It's now getting crowded on these rocks. The volcanic rock radiates heat like an oven in the midday sun. All over the island are birds' nests. The parents of this cormorant chick are facing trial by sun. The ground temperature climbs past the high 90s. But the nesting adults and their chicks can't escape. The chick has learned to expel the excess heat like its parent. As the sun moves across the sky, a female booby turns to face away in time with the shifting light, creating a sundial effect around its nest. It also raises its feathers to catch any cool breeze. The chick tries to shelter in its mother's shadow. An albatross pants deeply to lose heat too. All they can do is wait for sunset for relief. Sea lions have it easier. They hit the surf to cool down when it gets too hot. The Galapagos sea lions are the smallest of the sea lion species. They're not just fast in the water. They move as quick as a human across rocks too, when they're not dozing. The island's iguanas are safe to lounge on the rocky shoreline. But when the females go inland to build nests, they run a dangerous gauntlet from a sharp-eyed predator. The Galapagos Islanders wait for a cool change to arrive on their shores, with much-needed fish and nutrients in its wake. Today, sunset grants the animals a temporary reprieve from the heat. The air temperature drops by about 15 degrees Fahrenheit. The cold-blooded iguanas now risk becoming too cool. But the seabirds will enjoy the relief. For the sea lions, darkness brings new possibilities. Sea lions like to hunt at night when the fish are dozing. They take advantage of the coral reef drop-off into deeper water